Hi girls, and welcome to our introduction video for our second and final option, which is called the health of young people. This is just going to be a short video to kind of go over the first focus question, and in particular the first dot point associated with that focus question. Okay, so in this option we're going to look at the nature of young people's lives, what makes young people different to children, to older people, all those different subcategories that we have. And we're going to look at the factors that influence the health of young people. You'll learn that there's a lot that can be done to support the health of young people, and we'll critically analyse some of the things that are currently being done to support the health of those young people. So let's get on with it. Our first focus question is, what is good health for young people? So it's important when we're looking at this focus question to define what young people as a group are. Now we're looking between the ages of 15 and 25 years. We will look at aspects that distinguish this group, your group, from other groups, and particularly from previous generations. As you know, transitioning from children into independent adults involves a rapid growth process. Now that can be emotionally, physically, and even intellectually. Young people also generally experience a range of really important life events and can also make decisions that are going to affect them both short-term and long-term. Some of those decisions can be regarding schooling, the workforce, relationships, even regarding their health, so whether it's taking drugs or partaking in risk-taking behaviours. They're all important things that all happen at that young age. Then we have a look at our first focus question, which is called the nature of young people's lives. Okay, now compared to previous generations, young people's lives actually look very different. There's generally fewer siblings, blended families or different styles of families. Of course, there's the greater access to technology, and often both parents are working, which makes, I suppose, the factors that influence young people's health today a little bit different from what previous generations have experienced. We look now at how the developmental stage can vary in terms of their motivations, values, sociocultural background, etc. It's important to note that while we kind of group young people together as a category, there are vast differences within these categories or within this group. So firstly, we've got the rate of physical development. Okay, so how quickly people are growing physically, but also emotionally as well. And you'll notice that yourselves when you compare yourselves to others within your peer group. There's very different rates of growth and development that are happening. We look at people's motivations. So what gets them up in the morning? What makes them strive to achieve? Your motivation for working hard at school is going to be different from other people within your category of young people. So looking at their motivation can determine, of course, the level of health that they're at, but also I suppose the influence of young people in general and what they're striving for. Of course, then we have our socio-economic background. There's certain young people, due to their high socio-economic background, that tend to have the world at their feet. They have so many options ahead of them and many different choices to make, whereas others within the same age group won't have as many options or as many choices for their lives. And then, of course, we look at our socio-cultural background as being an influence on young people as well. Certain cultures have or put a greater emphasis on moving into the workforce or following a certain career path, or even looking after family members and so on. So these are all factors that can vary for our young people. Okay, I would say that this is probably the largest influence on young people, our family and peer groups. And you'll notice that as young people, the influence of family is very great and would be the biggest influence on young people's lives. Now, that can be whether, as children, choosing what to eat, guiding you in lifestyle behaviours and so on. As young people get older, however, the shift kind of moves more towards the peer group as being the greatest influence in their lives. And this can have positive and negative effects. Okay, an example would be a peer group supporting each other's decision not to smoke. A negative effect, however, might be a peer group, peers encouraging risk-taking behaviour on the roads. Okay, so both family and peers can have positive and negative influences on the lives of the young person. Oftentimes we see as the shift moves towards greater influence by the peers, that can also cause a little bit of a conflict within the family as well, because they're losing some of their influence and that's being shifted to peers. So our next influence is the influence of prevailing youth cultures. Now, as you may be familiar with, youth tends to have a culture all of its own, and we've kind of seen that develop over the years, where we've gone from the hippie era to the free love era to, in my day in the 90s, there was the grunge and gothic type of youth culture, which, by the way, I did not partake in. Youth culture isn't always negative, although it's often perceived that way, that, children of today are being influenced by their gang-style youth culture. Oftentimes we see that those youth culture groups and those subcultural groups can help young people adjust into adults in a much easier and supported way. Our next major influence is looking at the influence of global events and trends. Now, the influence, as you know, I suppose access to international events now can happen instantaneously, and this can often affect the health of young people, particularly psychologically. We see a lot of events that are broadcast instantaneously and unfiltered, and they can cause a lot of, psychological upset with young people. A good example is when we see natural disasters that have occurred across the world and they're reported so frequently and so quickly. Particularly, we saw last year with the execution of the Bali 9 members, how much effect that had on young people within our society, because the access to that information and being broadcast in live time was so great. Then our last influence, that slide's a bit to the side, isn't it? Apologies for that, is where we look at, there we go, the influence of technology. Now, this is perhaps one of the greatest influences that's on young people now as opposed to previous generations. As you guys know, there's positive and negative influences to do with technology on the lives of young people. Of course, there's greater access to information, which is a positive, but that information is also unfiltered, which can have negative influences. To do with technology as well, there are new jobs and career opportunities. Hang on a second, there's children. Apologies for the slight interruption. Okay, so to do with technologies, there's also new jobs and career opportunities that are being produced because of the influence of technology. Now, this can also cause a little bit of conflict for young people when parents expect you to go into certain normal career opportunities, and they're not familiar with the new kind of categories that are popping up all over the place. So software development, website design, all of these sorts of things that are to do with technology. For young people as well, with technology, there is unlimited access to distractions. So whether that's gaming, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchatting, music downloading, video downloading, movie downloading, and so on. So that they can all be negative influences on the lives of young people. And of course, we see that technology can have financial implications. where people rack up huge bills to do with their technology because they're unaware of the contracts and things like that. So that is our first dot point for the first focus question in a nutshell. Of course, the PowerPoint presentation goes with this video, which we will go on with in class.